Thank you, everyone, for joining us and welcome to our session. Today, we're going to be discussing the energy industry's transformation and how it's being enabled through innovative partnerships and through digital technology. After a brief overview of what we're seeing across the energy sector, I'll be joined by two of my colleagues from the sector, two of our strategic partners, actually, Schlumberger and Schneider Electric, who will share some very useful insights. The world is facing many complex energy challenges: security of supply and affordability, cybersecurity threats and attacks on critical infrastructure, energy access for billions of underserved people around the world is still a big challenge. And lastly, sustainability and decarbonization are definitely top of mind. And as we've seen in the last 12 months, the energy sector is grappling with the challenge to provide enough energy to the world and to do it while simultaneously trying to lower emissions. We've seen some very dramatic examples of the challenges facing the climate over the summer and the last winter, with extremes in terms of heat and cold and the impact it's having on the reliability of energy delivery. The oil and gas industry in particular has to simultaneously respond to multiple challenges, one around accelerating the energy transition goals that are being articulated by many, and two, fulfilling the market demands and urgent needs of energy supply today, particularly given the context of what's happening in Ukraine. And lastly, I'll say solving this requires a broad set of solutions. It requires new innovations, and it requires collaboration, most importantly, from all across the sector, as well as the public and private aspects of the energy sector. Digital technologies are a key lever in enabling organizations across the energy sector to achieve any objectives around decarbonization and energy access and reliability. Global energy demand is expected to increase almost 50% over the next 30 years, in concert with the population increasing from 7.5 billion people today to 10 billion people by 2050. And this is going to be driven particularly by the Asian and African countries. The market forces that are driving this transformation across energy start with the energy consumer and integrating more renewables and distributed energy resources into the power supply, leading to the need for digitizing and modernizing the grid and developing new grid operating models. I'm sure we'll hear a little bit more about that from Scott. There's also the need, as I said earlier, to accelerate the energy transition as well as sustainability. And lastly, cybersecurity. As I've traveled around the world talking to my colleagues in the industry, cybersecurity is top of mind. I think about the Colonial Pipeline attack in the US. I think about what's going on between Russia and Ukraine. And at the end of the day, we know a few things. Data breaches are up. We know that the cost of a breach for the energy sector is almost double the global average of any other industry. And the energy sector is increasingly targeted and more vulnerable. Microsoft, as a matter of fact, is one of the most targeted and attacked organizations on the planet. In 2020, for example, we blocked over 9 billion malware threats, and we processed over 24 trillion signals per day. We employ around 8,500 people, making us one of the largest security companies on the globe. And recently, we acquired a company called CyberX, a leading IoT security platform providing end-to-end IT/OT protection that will help the energy need address the environments around complex security. I think I'm going to stop there and turn it over to my colleague Ua, who leads the energy and industry commercial team on behalf of Microsoft. Ua, I'll turn it over to you.
Darryl, thank you so much. Thank you for an amazing opening. And we'll transition here to a panel with you and also two of our esteemed guests, Trygve Ramdin and Scott Harden. We'll talk a bit about energy transition, expand on the comments that you've shared, and really, especially for this Ignite audience, we want to focus on technology. So first of all, to introduce our guests, Trygve Ramdin is Director Digital Subsurface Solutions at Schlumberger, and Scott Harden is the CTO at Schneider Electric. I want to ask Trygve the first question here. Trigger, would you talk a little bit about how Schlumberger thinks about innovation and leveraging it to explore white spaces in your business?
We have a lot of tracks of innovation. So I'll speak about a couple of the things we've been doing. So first of all, in our industry, we are clearly the market leader, largest market share, and so on and so forth. And when in the software space, and when we saw the opportunities that digital transformation was offering to us, we decided to be the ones disrupting ourselves. Basically, the innovator's dilemma. We had to take the industry forward, and we made a leap of commitment, if you like, into transitioning that and defining new technology that is going to be replacing the existing cash generators for the company. I would like to bring up another aspect that we're doing. We have, when it comes to creating digital technology, we have essentially particularly two pieces of the organization that work in a mode of, if you like, constructive friction. We have a product management organization, which is looking, if you like, outside in, which is representing the customer, which is representing the domains that we are addressing, the workflow needs, and listening to what the industry needs are. That's very much an outside-in drive. We'll come up with innovation to a certain extent, and we'll also come up with the needs of the customer and the market. Then we have the technology organization, which is essentially the software engineering organization, architects, the technology experts, and they take an inside-out perspective. And through this constructive friction, we are driving innovation from both ends. Sometimes you will get innovation by looking at a technology, and new technology bring new solutions. So it's a tool basically looking for a problem, but sometimes that can be very useful. And other times we will drive it out from a need from the market. And I think that's a key component to what we have achieved in the market, where we are today, where we have traditionally been, and also how we have been taking on the digital transformation from our company.
Thank you very much for that framework, the outside in and also inside out, and sort of creating innovation where that tension between the two frameworks meet. Speaking of white spaces, I'll transition to Scott here. Scott, Schneider Electric recently made some acquisitions to enable smart grid use cases. As the CTO for innovation, tell us a bit about how this move fits into your innovation cycle.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. And thank you for having me as part of this conversation. Really excited to be
You're
here
welcome.
with everybody. This is fantastic. We approach innovation in two ways as well. And Trigva, I like your comments around, inside, outside in, inside out. We kind of do something quite similar. Schneider has been around for 180 years. And, our business is really aligned into two verticals, which is energy management and industrial automation. But there's a new dimension to our business as we go through this rapid evolution of, innovation and how we approach innovation as a business. And digital is really the undercurrent there. It's the theme to all of what we're doing. And so from our traditional businesses, innovation is incremental. And what the innovation organization, which is a standalone team that I'm part of, is responsible for, is really looking at growth. And where we see growth aligned, to this huge problem that we're all trying to solve around, energy transition, is the electrification of everything. We do understand electricity. And there's a theme that we talk about a lot around, electricity 4.0, and it's really a transition within a transition, for lack of a better term, because as the energy sector broadly, moves from, many different methods by which, energy will be delivered and consumed, the energy system on the power and utility side is also going through a massive amount of disruption, because it's legacy infrastructure that was not designed to work, in the way that, the energy of the future, the energy system of the future needs to operate. And so we have made some recent acquisitions. A good friend of mine on the call here in this meeting told me once that pace matters, and we recognize that. And for us, pace has come by way of our organization. And so SE Ventures sits within our organization. And what we have seen is there are some really interesting disruptors that are participating in this space now. And the way that we have approached this is by being very selective in who we invest in from a disruptive perspective. We can bring those entities together to actually do something that's more transformative. And so that's what we're focused on.
Well, Scott, that's very helpful. Acknowledging that that outside in and inside out framework is also relevant, but then also really building around the big energy transition needs out there. That makes a ton of sense. So Darryl, in your overview, you talked about some of the energy transition trends. Would you share a bit about how Microsoft is adjusting to these trends?
Yeah, so I would say a couple of things. First, I would say that Microsoft about 2 years ago committed to becoming carbon negative by 2030. We also said that by 2050, we would take all of the carbon out of the environment that we've put in since Microsoft was founded in 1975. In addition to that, we have talked about how by 2025, we're going to run all of our campuses and all of our data centers on 100% renewable energy. In addition to that, we established a climate fund, a $1 billion climate innovation fund to support new technology, because we believe a lot of the technology that's going to be required to deliver on net zero by 2050 or sooner globally has to be created, has to be invented. We also are making some big bets on emerging technologies like carbon capture and storage, doing more around methane detection, and with some very innovative and interesting projects around the world, from the North Sea to the Permian Basin in Texas. And lastly, we are supporting our customers and our partners as they achieve their own decarbonization efforts by helping them future-proof their businesses and ultimately, hopefully, leveraging their digital to help modernize and future-proof their existing businesses, but also leveraging digital to accelerate the energy transition. And the last thing I would say is that for us, partnership is absolutely essential. There's no way we can get to where we need to get to on our own, and there's nowhere any company on the planet can. So for us, forming partnerships with the right companies, right customers and partners who are leaning in, like Schlumberger, like Schneider and others, is incredibly important to us being able to deliver on the world's ambition around its relationship to net zero.
Darryl, thank you very much. And I think this is a topic that is very, very relevant for the Ignite audience, right? Is that sort of innovation with Microsoft. And thanks for laying out, examples of how we're doing that. And it would be great actually to hear from you, Scott, just thinking about the work you're doing and the work that you will be doing in the future. There's a lot, especially with the acquisitions and innovation cycle you described earlier. What are your expectations when it comes to co-innovation with a partner like Microsoft?
Yeah, glad to speak to that, and thanks for that question, Noah.
You're welcome.
We see the relationship with Microsoft as essential because we understand electricity. We've been participating in this space, for a long time, obviously. But as we bring the investments that we make together into, a platform, perhaps like a domain-specific platform, we need a partner like Microsoft that has a global resource that is the cloud that can be utilized for energy systems of the future. And so where innovation really matters, and I think that the theme that we should really be talking about it more is co-innovation. Where co-innovation matters is really understanding how working together can truly accelerate not only our roadmap, can help accelerate Microsoft's roadmap, but also can help accelerate bringing the solutions that are truly needed to the industry to help with our objectives around decarbonization.
Darryl, back to you. Would you share about how Microsoft is structured to drive innovation initiatives that enable the energy industry?
Sure. Well, I'll say a couple of words, and I'll be brief. I mean, I think the first thing I would say is that we're a technology company focused on enabling others to achieve more. Not only achieving more, but achieving more at scale, which also means a couple of things. But it really means one thing that I want to emphasize is that when we work with our customers, when we work with our partners, the intent is to never compete with customers and partners in their businesses. We're very, very clear about that. The second thing I'd say is that we offer the energy sector an end-to-end suite of digital capabilities for productivity, for collaboration, and intelligent insights from data. And the third thing I'd say, and actually the most important thing I would say, is that we have an unmatched ecosystem of domain partners. As a matter of fact, it's one of the things that attracted me to Microsoft, this unmatched ecosystem of domain partners for the energy sector that we believe will help to maximize digital and business value. And our desire in the short term, medium term, and long term is to collaborate and co-innovate with partners and customers to truly help them differentiate the value that can be delivered through their businesses. So we're really excited about these things.
Darryl, thanks so much for laying that out. Oh, Scott, please go right ahead.
Yeah, I'd love to chime in on that, just because it's a theme that's really been discussed a lot within Schneider. One of the things that we have heard Satya say and we've heard Darryl say is that Microsoft really is creating a platform for platform creators. And that resonates really well with us, because as we look to create capabilities for prosumers, for grid management, for other capabilities, we truly see that that's how our relationship really can coexist and actually co-innovate together. And so I'm really glad to hear that theme come up.
It's great to hear those learnings and best practices are very aligned across companies. And Scott, thanks for sharing that. And Scott, just sticking with you for a moment here, and this is very relevant for the Ignite audience, sort of working with Microsoft as an innovation partner. What are your expectations from co-innovation with a partner like Microsoft?
Yeah, I've been glad to speak to that, because I think it's incredibly important, for the direction that we're headed. We as a company understand a lot about energy management. We understand industrial automation, but we don't understand the cloud to the level that Microsoft has truly invested in creating a global resource. And so our expectations here is to really partner and to learn how we take advantage of a lot of the capabilities that Microsoft has created, not only when it comes to cloud as infrastructure, but some of the key capabilities that Darryl touched on earlier when he was talking about, like CyberX, the cybersecurity capabilities, because now we are starting to look at those as essentially capabilities that we would embed within the solutions that we bring to market.
Well, that's excellent, Scott. Thanks for that. And Trygve, a similar question to you. Tell us a bit about Schlumberger's journey with Microsoft and how you've worked together.
Yeah, today I need to start with that. Today we have chosen Microsoft as the strategic partner for our cloud technology, and we have a long partnership relation to Microsoft, absolutely. But when we started our cloud transition, we started with Microsoft and another cloud service provider as two partners. But it was very clear that Microsoft had a very strong commitment to the energy industry, and our customers chose to work with Microsoft, and we chose to increase the partnership we have with Microsoft. So that started out in a very, started out and it gradually kind of converged to one single strategic partner, which of course simplifies matters. In addition to that, we had a joint customer who said, we want to really work closely with both of you to drive the digital transformation. And that became a three-way partnership that has been very decisive in forming also the one-to-one partnership between Microsoft and Schlumberger. And today we are working very closely together to deliver both complex, super complex, very scientifically deep technologies to the industry users, the people who make their end decisions, if you like. Heavy duty workstation software that sometimes are up to 0.5 terabyte of RAM and multiple GPUs, just to give a bit of connect or pointers there in terms of the size and complexity of the infrastructure that's required, delivered over the cloud. High performance computing, both for seismic processing and simulation of fluid flow and so on, which are key tasks that we're looking at. And also lately, I would say one of the other key challenges we have, and particularly in our industry, is data residency. So how do we make the cloud accessible in countries where they say our data are never going to leave the country? And these are some of the challenges that we're working very closely with Microsoft to address today, to deliver the performance cost efficiently and accessible within the constraints that the market is throwing at us. But I would say that as we are looking at it now, more and more of our customers, our joint customers, are coming back to us and say we really need to work this in a three-way partnership. So I see just the proliferation of these three-way partnerships to help drive the customer transformation into digital, and where we complement each other very well. And I really like the words that Darryl is saying. Microsoft never competes with your partners, and that is what makes it very easy for us to work very closely with Microsoft, because we can work in a trusted relationship. We complement each other. as Scott as well was saying, and that helps deliver great value to our customers.
Oh, thank you, Trygve. You know, listening to you and Scott, right, there themes that connect to the framing that you all set up initially around outside in and inside out, but also there's this theme around trust as well, and sort of customer centricity. That's very fascinating. Looking at the other side of that relationship now, going back to Microsoft and Darryl, it would be great to hear the Microsoft point of view on innovating with partners. If you could share a bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking while Trygve was talking about something I heard when I attended the ONS conference in Stavanger, Norway recently. One of the speakers said something around the role that the energy sector has to play with countries, communities, and customers. And I remember sitting in the conference thinking that actually applies to Microsoft as well, because we're deeply committed to partnering with countries or governments and cities and customers and all organizations across the energy and technology sector to jointly develop, and that's the key word, jointly develop and partner to build innovative solutions to address the current needs of energy or around energy, as well as the climate needs that are ongoing and growing, without, and it's important that I say this, without leaving anyone behind. Innovation and collaboration are absolutely required to oxygenate partnerships and to deliver on all of our ambitions. I think about some of the things we're doing, for example, our public and private partnership with the CCS project in the North Sea called Northern Lights, where Microsoft is a part of this joint effort with the Norwegian government, as well as Equinor, Shell, and Total, seeking to standardize and scale carbon capture and storage across Europe. This is important because we can't get to net zero as a planet without CCS working. I also think about the role that established, credible, capable domain partners like Schlumberger and like Schneider Electric mean to this journey, as well as digital natives and startups. But companies like Schneider Electric and Schlumberger are absolutely key. I also think about the fact that Microsoft decided a few years ago to become a founding member of a clean energy think tank in Houston called Greentown Labs. It's a climate tech startup, actually, an incubator to help establish many new innovative climate technologies that we think will be key. I guess the last thing I'll say, Ua, is the bottom line for us is that partnership make everything possible. And it will help enable our customers, and it will help enable the journey that we're all on to protect and to make the planet as productive and make energy as accessible and as clean and affordable as possible.
Darryl, thank you so much for those comments. And I'd love to stick with that energy transition theme as we come closer to the end of the panel here. I have three more questions for you, Trygve, Scott, and then Darryl will give you the final word. Trygve, you know, we recently announced a new product for the energy industry, Microsoft Energy Data Services. How does this enable the energy transition in your point of view?
Well, I mean, it is perfectly fit for that, and especially as Darryl was referring to, especially focused on the carbon storage. Carbon storage will have to be a component, at least for the next several decades, to achieve and the net zero ambitions of the world that we have today. And we're going to need to be smart about it. And in upstream, if you like, an oil and gas industry, if you like, we haven't traditionally been that smart about it. We had numerous silos between individual vendors, applications, having data in different places, between even applications within single vendors having silos or bringing with them silos. So the data landscape for our customers today, sadly to say, is quite a spaghetti dish, if you like. So with this new initiative that we're working jointly on, Microsoft Energy Data Services, we are trying together with the whole industry through its sort of component part, the OSU forum. We're trying to standardize on one data platform for the entire industry. And that is critical for a number of cases. That's critical because it is going to avoid those silos and make things more efficient. Okay, that's pretty obvious. but it's also going to help us both facilitate a innovation ecosystem, because now instead of having to build your new data silo, if you like, when you're innovating, you can rely on something which is rich in data within every customer, the same architecture everywhere. OSU is the foundation for that. The collaboration we have, we industrialize it, bring it to real value. And then, of course, ultimately, if you're going to have success with artificial intelligence and machine learning, you need a lot of data, and you need data from multiple sources. And data silos will not be providing you that, but a unified data platform will be providing you that. And all of these things, we're going to have to be super smart, because carbon storage is not going to be straightforward. And we will need to drive the innovation forward. And that's what I see we are enabling with this collaboration.
Thank you, Trygve. So with this technology builds a foundation and then enables this innovation cycle that will drive and enable things like carbon capture. It makes a ton of sense. I appreciate you framing it up that way. Scott, similar question for you. How are your innovation initiatives driving the energy transition?
Yeah, I want to build off of what Trygve just talked about, because I think it's incredibly important. I think that, Trygve, you talked earlier about sovereignty, and I think that that's important. But I think that data standards and the example that you have set working with Microsoft around OSDU is something that, we in the electricity industry are going to pattern after as well. I think that there are standards that are missing that are going to be essential for the interoperability that's going to be required, for the future transactive energy systems. And I think that, when we talk about the topic of trust is established by openness. And this is where our partnership with Microsoft, where we look to Microsoft as really being that center of gravity that is bringing the appropriate mix of partners across the ecosystem to focus on that one singular problem, which is to establish those standards that we can all participate in to deliver the solutions that are going to be required for energy transition.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and if I may jump in there, Scott, it's a very good point. Actually, we have the same in our industry, whether as you look at it as oil and gas or carbon storage or the combined thing there. The partnership with Microsoft has enabled the Microsoft having the trust of being a vendor neutral or software provider neutral player, if you like. So that partnership, that trust that Microsoft can contribute, and the domain understanding that Schlumberger can contribute is a really fundamental component in making a success in the collaboration.
Thank you so much. We've come to the end of the panel, and I just want to thank all the panelists. There's sort of some key themes I wanted to call out. One, the energy transition is real, and innovation is needed to enable it, to unlock solutions like smart grid and carbon capture. Also, we talked about frameworks around co-innovation across our various companies, and there were some fantastic ideas that came out of that. And then finally, innovation requires partnership, and that partnership is built on a foundation of trust. So I would like to thank Trygve and Scott and Darryl for a fantastic panel. And to the Ignite audience, thank you for watching this, and enjoy the rest of Ignite. Thank you so much.